I wanted my hero to move through every level of London society, or not so much my hero as my story to move through every level of London society, to make it as all-inclusive and all-encompassing as possible, in a way, in the same way as a Victorian novel by Dickens or Trollope might do. So you have in my novel aristocrats, and you have drug addicts and prostitutes. You have successful middle-class people, you have intellectuals, there's even a washed-up novelist. It was a deliberate aim to try to get society in all its dimensions in the book. I didn't just want it to be about one part of London or one part of its denizens. I wanted to, in the way the Victorians did, somehow paint a picture of the way we live now in all levels of society. Just because the urge came over me, it comes over me from time to time. I want to write about this period I'm living in, and that I have strong feelings about. But it's interesting, you cannot fix Ordinary Thunderstorms to any particular year or period. There's nothing mentioned in it that says, oh, this book was written in 2008 or 2009. So theoretically it could be read in 2015 or 2020 and still seem contemporary. I haven't fixed it in a moment of the 20th century. It's just vaguely now. That's what I mean by saying it could be happening today or tomorrow or next year. And it's very important for me because I think if I wrote about who was Prime Minister or what was number one in the charts or what the score between England and Spain was in their friendly match, the book would be pinned down absolutely and would have, I think, a kind of built-in obsolescence. And that as you hope it's going to be read in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years' time, but you don't want to have to add footnotes to explain the references. I mean, there are mobile phones and there's the internet and everything that's modern about modern life, but it's deliberately not pinned down to this year or last year or even next year. So that's one of the appealing things about writing a contemporary novel, the sense in which you can sometimes be ahead of the game. When you write a novel that's set firmly and precisely in the past, like Restless, which is set in 1941-42, then you take huge efforts to get those details right that I've deliberately left out of Ordinary Thunderstorms. But I think it's because I think every novel I write is different in a way, and it has to stimulate and fascinate and intrigue me. And if I'm intrigued and fascinated, then there's a good chance the reader will be as well. But it was a sense of living in London now, and I wanted to capture it, that made me want to write a thoroughly, completely contemporary novel. I enjoyed writing the novel for all sorts of reasons. I mean, there's a simple aesthetic pleasure, the thrill that you have as a novelist of creating a world and populating it, of playing God, if you like, in your fictional universe. This novel is unusual in my work. It's my 10th, and it's the first time I've actually written omnisciently, in the sense that the Victorian novelists did, in that I go in and out of characters' heads. I think there are 8 or 9 different voices that I use. Quite difficult to do, and not that fashionable nowadays, but when you're trying to write something that is multi-layered and all-inclusive, it's actually probably the best technique to use. So it was a great pleasure to write omnisciently and to be able to say, she's thinking this and he's thinking that, and juxtapose them, because usually you have a very rigidly fixed point of view in a novel, and it's the subjectivity of that character or those few characters that dominates the narrative. But I was free to rove as widely as I wanted, and if it served my purposes to enter the head of a junior executive in a pharmaceutical firm, I could. So that was great fun. Also, it was very interesting touring around London, sniffing bits of it out, and I spent weeks and weeks going to all sorts of places and wandering around with a notebook in hand. So you're kind of a tourist in your own city. It's so gigantic that bits of London that I'd never visited before, and I deliberately went to some of the seedier, grottier areas to flesh out the background. But so that was an enormous pleasure. But I think it is that the reason why you write novels, I think, or why I write novels, is that creating your own world and filling it with your people, and determining their fates as well. If I lost my identity, I think that's it in a way. It's your sense of self, I think, that is finally the most important thing to you. And that sense is built up of all sorts of components, your relationships, your reputation, your mobile phone. It's a very, very precious thing, and it was one of the triggers for the novel to imagine, or to try and imagine, what it must be like to be a non-person in a way, to have nothing that makes you somebody. No address, no bills, no passport, no means of identifying yourself, no means of participating in society except at the most basic survivalist level, scavenging food, sleeping rough. It's quite a terrifying prospect, I think, for anyone who doesn't have to do it, but you just need to look around the city and you see people doing it all over the place. So I think that is the almost Kafkaesque terror of being somebody in the world with all these props that we unthinkingly rely on, suddenly having them removed and wondering, how on earth, what would I do? Throw myself off Battersea Bridge? I don't know, but it is a kind of modern nightmare in a way.